So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Just want to say good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining our roundtable discussion. We're really excited that you can join both Workday and AVAP. Workday is sponsoring this conversation with us today. You're going to hear from the CFO of Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, Dallas Grundy, and our AVAP Workday Financial subject matter expert team and reporting SMEs. And they're going to discuss how Workday Financials will help improve visibility into your institution's financial health. So I just wanted to do a quick introduction. My name is Amy LaHate. I lead AVAP's higher education sales team. I've been helping institutions select, implement, and optimize ERP systems in the higher ed space for about 25 years. Started my career in higher ed student services, spent about 14 years working at a company called Ellucian, implementing student information systems, both Banner and colleague clients. And then I moved over to the Workday ecosystem in around 2017, and I haven't looked back since. So I'm going to turn it over to my partner in crime, Analia Morrow, so she could introduce herself. And Analia has graciously agreed to be our facilitator today. So Analia.
I am happy to do so. Before we get started with introductions, Amy, is there any housekeeping or anything that we want to let people know about? We certainly want to welcome questions and chats that we will answer as we go through. Any other housekeeping items?
Yeah, just that the session is going to be recorded. We'll distribute it either tomorrow or Monday, and that all participants, you will be muted, but you're welcome to submit questions in the chat, and we will do our best to answer them throughout. And if we don't get to all of them, we'll certainly follow up to address your questions afterwards. And finally, just want to say thank you to Workday for co-sponsoring today's discussion. We know we really appreciate our partnership in bringing us all together today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as Amy said, my name is Analia Morrow, and I like to say I stopped counting at 29 years of higher education experience because I'm not aging, of course. But my background is all higher ed. I've been an administrator and executive for higher education, registrar, enrollment management administrator, also administrator for Workday at the first school to go live with Workday student now 10 years ago. So it's been quite a journey, been in the ecosystem for Workday about that long. And it is so exciting to be able to work with clients and with our fabulous consultants, some of whom you will meet today. We are also very excited that Dallas Grundy is going to join us. I'm going to save the best for last. So Dallas, you just have to smile and wait for us to do the introduction. Sarah, I'll start with you. If you could just briefly tell us, of course, your name and the area that you work in so that folks kind of understand what direction you'll be coming from as we have conversation today.
Sorry about that. There we go. I actually was going to say a little bit about AVAP first, but we can move forward if we prefer.
I'll come back to that. Yep, I'll come back.
All good. Let's
All
go
right.
for intros.
Yep. Sarah.
Okay. I'll take it then. Hi, I'm Sarah Royer. Nice to see some of you on this call. We've got some friends on here, so nice. Hi, everyone. I am one of our senior solution architects here at AVAP. In my role, I focus in Workday exclusively across all of our industry, so higher education being my primary focus. And the areas of Workday that I focus on are financial accounting, all of our chart of accounts design that we'll talk about a little bit today, as well as banking budgets and our revenue streams. So yeah, happy to see you all today.
Thank you. David.
Yes, David Lockwood. I'm on our adaptive planning implementation side of things. I've been working with adaptive planning for about 4 years. If you're not familiar with the software, we're going to be talking about it later, so you're in the right place. And before that, spent a decade across different accounting and finance-oriented roles.
Wonderful. Terry.
Hi, Terry Kennedy. I have been in the ecosystem for 5 years. I am a reporting consultant, so I report both on HCM and financials, but focus is financials. So I'll talk a little bit about the tools and some of the advantages of using Workday reporting.
And you may hear from Cora Mayo. She is our senior architect and director of the financials area. She has been kind enough to be on to have conversation with us, even though she's supporting the rest of the team as panelists. So you may hear her voice, or she may assist us with answering questions. Before we go to you, Dallas, I'm just raising the tension. Everyone is so excited to hear your story. Amy, why don't you give a little bit of background about AVAP, and then we'll jump into questions and conversations.
Great. Let me go ahead and share my screen one more time. Let's see. You all see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So AVEP is a Workday certified implementation partner. We've been so since 2016. We have over 350 consultants. We provide end-to-end transformation services from project readiness through implementation to post-production support, as well as change management and data and analytics services. And we've been partnering in the higher ed space for over 20 years. Here's a snapshot of some of the institutions we've worked with over the years, and you can see some of our Workday implementations in the middle. And this is a high-level overview of the breadth and depth of our services. In addition to implementing ERP with Workday, we also specialize in a variety of other solutions partners you can see listed on the right-hand side in the data and analytics space. And then there's a whole host of other subspecialties from understanding the impact of AI on your business, again, project readiness and change management. So I think the last thing I just wanted to mention is that today's session is actually part of a broader roundtable series that we are co-sponsoring with Workday this entire year. So keep an eye out for our roundtable sessions on a bi-monthly basis. It's all about helping institutions evaluate, prepare, and become educated on what you need to do to successfully implement Workday. And I think without further ado, we can jump right in.
All right. So Dallas, I'm just going to jump right in that one of the most interesting things about you is that we don't have a lot of clients who have been through a transformation at all in their career, but you've done not one or even two, but this is your third Workday project. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at PCOM and those three projects?
Happy to do so, Analia. Thank you so much for uh, building up the expectation of my introduction. So happy to join the AVAP team here this afternoon, and all of my colleagues out there in the CFO or CIO or higher education space. My name is Dallas Grundy. I am the Vice President for Finance and Administration here at the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, a position that I've had now for a year and 3 days. Having a great time here. Prior to joining here at Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, I was at the University of Akron, and there's where I met the fabulous AVAP team who also did our implementation there at the University of Akron. So we did. As we're doing here at the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, we're implementing both the platform piece, which is the finance and HCM instantiation of Workday, as well as the student piece. So this is my second time going through those two of those full implementations, and then prior to my time at the University of Akron, I was at University of Pennsylvania, where we did just the HCM piece there. So a little less complicated, but then again, not less complicated at all. So so I can't say that that I have mastered the implementation or all the functionality of Workday, but I'm so happy to share some time and just share whatever insights I can today with you about the transformation that I've seen Workday able to make, and the continued support for the finance function that it provides and has provided for me throughout my experiences. So thank you so much.
We appreciate you, Dallas. And you say that you have not mastered the system, but what you absolutely have mastered is the vision of what you'd like to see and how you want to be able to provide data and analysis for the fiscal health of your organization. So can you talk to us a little bit about what you look for with the operational insights that you expect to get from Workday in the financial area?
Absolutely. Operational, financial. Workday is a dynamic tool. And in almost every situation, not every situation, but almost every situation that I've been in, we're coming from a standpoint where, at the very least, there were several shadow systems, many Excel database systems, many Access database systems that were used to supplement our financial reporting, our financial management, the budgeting process. And what I found with Workday, and again, I really truly believe that I've only touched the tip of the iceberg, is that Workday really enables CFOs and finance teams to unleash the power of their data. And so, it's typically a arduous process to migrate the data and stand up Workday, relatively. But once you have done that, Workday is a dynamic tool that really helps you to, run real-time reports. And even before real-time reports, establish dashboards and red flags to help you really to stay on top of your data. For institutions like mine and like those of you out there who are who are CFOs of higher education organizations, you're looking to diversify revenue sources. You're looking to supplement and fortify the tuition revenue that you're getting. And Workday is a tool that really enables you to, again, take different reports, take different slices of your data, and see that data in a way that really brings to the surface some insights that can help you make strategic decisions. So whether you're looking for trends in your enrollment, or trends in specific areas of your offerings, in terms of revenue sources, if you're looking for on the operations side and trying to really manage your expenses, you can use Workday to really cut and slice the data. And then once you have extracted a certain amount of insights that you're looking for, and you're now planning to, maybe launch a new course, or maybe try a different operational tactic in one of your administrative centers. What Workday does through adaptive planning and through some of just the embedded tools in Workday is allow you to do different scenario analyses. So you can actually plan out and freeze variables and manipulate and modify other variables to see what the financial outcomes may be of those different scenarios that you're running. So all of these tools are embedded right into Workday. And Workday comes as a package that by nature transforms your organization. By nature, you're going to have to look at upgrading your processes, tweaking some processes. So it is a culture changer just by implementation. And so keeping the momentum of that culture change just enables you to try and do new things with this data, and go into new bold places with your data to try to really capture those opportunities that otherwise might take a little bit more time, a little bit more effort to exculpate and bring to the surface. So I went on a little bit there, Analea, but
Okay.
just really to say that Workday is a dynamic tool that allows most of us who work with this data on a daily basis to be one or two clicks away from getting the answers that we're looking for.
So I'm hearing a theme of not only real-time data giving you that insight and the opportunity to see revenue streams beyond tuition, but also real-time reporting and automation and being able to model with adaptive, and David's going to talk to us a little bit more about that, which certainly is going to help you with risk analysis, compliance, audit readiness, all of those things that I know are so important. I want to give the opportunity for those who are attending to get an idea of what we're talking about with the finance system. So let's talk a little bit about how it's built. And we call the foundation data model, or we may say FDM for short. Sarah, I love this wheel. I know that you love this wheel. So I want to bring you in, and Dallas, as a client perspective, of course, we'll welcome you to chime in to offer opinions and experiences as you see fit. Otherwise, I'll come to you to the end for a closing question that I already have in mind for you. So Sarah, why don't you give us the high level view of the foundation data model?
Absolutely. Thanks, Annalia. Happy to. And I do love this slide. So thanks for letting me include it. So don't stare at the little wheels though, because it will drive you insane. I swear they're all the same height and it doesn't matter. It'll make you look at, so don't look too close. So anyway, though, so the wheels, I want you to picture this to be like a slot machine. So I don't know the last time anybody's been gambling, right? But now they have all these newfangled machines where it goes and it does like all these weird crosses. And I don't know how that line made up, but like, I'm still up 5 cents, so it's fine, I guess. Kind of picture that same thing for this wheel. So each of these wheels spinning independent of one another, which means we don't need to have a set long string of data that would contain all of these data elements. So this one that's sort of highlighted on our screen here, we've got the chemistry department purchasing some kind of movable equipment on a capital project. Great. So we can have all of these wheels that capture those individual pieces of data for us. Or I can also, let's say, spin maybe the project wheel, and I can spin it up one. And now I want to purchase movable equipment for chemistry on project 454F878 instead of the other project. Maybe I move the project wheel out altogether and I scroll my fund wheel and I'm purchasing movable equipment on a general fund, also in the chemistry department, right? So all of these can dynamically be used however the transaction sees fit. And then we have pretty much infinite flexibility with how we want to report on these values. So I can report on the highlighted string just the way we have it. I could also report on just movable equipment purchased from Granger, or all movable equipment purchased on that project, regardless of the department that purchased it, the cost center that purchased it, regardless of the supplier that it was on, right? Any of these different wheels, as well as the next level up on these wheels. So perhaps, equipment rolls up eventually into some ledger account hierarchy that contains all of our operating expenses. Great. I can also report at that level, and then any combination of these various wheels too. So infinite reporting capabilities.
But with infinite reporting, it's kind of like Spider-Man, right?
It
Infinite
is.
opportunities, but I'm sure that there's much responsibility there. So what are some lessons learned there that maybe you don't want to be infinite?
So there's a couple of kind of driving factors. And actually, I have a little bit of graphic on this too. If you'll flip to the next slide, just to give us something to stare at while I talk. So two of our lessons learned, or the biggest lesson learned that I have personally encountered, is that we designed this great system and we were not thinking of it fully comprehensively. So one big one that'll get us is our left side. So on our reporting side, our reporting is our main driver. From my perspective, if we design a system that works wonderfully, people are out here doing their expense reports, and that's fantastic, but I can't get that financial report out, it was an unsuccessful implementation from my perspective, right? From a financial accounting lead, if you can't get accurate data back out of it, then we failed, right? So we need to make that end driver be those reports and work our way backwards into our design to be able to produce those as easily and repeatable as possible. It's not going to be perfect, right? There's still some manipulation that probably happens in formatting and things like that. But where I can get us as close as we possibly can, that's our goal. And Terry's going to talk a lot about all the magic that she gets to work on the reporting side. But before we get to the report piece of it, right, we have to design it. So one lesson learned is making sure we are designing it for all of the various outputs. So sometimes we end up in a situation where we designed for the ACFR. Great, it works perfect. But then we realize we don't have the appropriate levels in our model to support budgetary control. Or
Mhm.
maybe I don't have the appropriate levels to support a board report, or maybe a state report that I have to do for a state entity. So making sure we are taking all of those endpoints and working our way backwards for all of them, and not just focused on that one financial report that we need. Great. But what about all this other stuff? And then Terry will come back to us and be like, well, how do we get to this? And I don't want the answer to be, well, you take this, but then take this one out and then add it with this other one. And then, right, like we don't want to have these complicated things. If we can avoid it, let's make that design perfect for all of them. The second big lesson learned that we've had is that people look at the system and they're like, wow, Workday's incredible. I like the fact that I can use real words instead of codes, and our reports are
Yeah.
named easy things and great.
Mhm.
But if they can't pick the right value because we like over designed our chart of accounts, and they get five things and they're like, I don't know the difference between all this, I'm putting it in miscellaneous and moving on, right? If we overcomplicate the system to where the users can't get to the data we need, then we've also failed, right? Because back to our original goal, if the report is not accurate and easy to get out, it's not going to be accurate if people are just shoving things into the first result because they can't figure out the complexities that we designed. So
Right.
those are
Right.
kind of our two big lessons learned, and our drivers as we go through designing the FDM.
Very important. So thinking about that design, Terry, what are some of the elements when we look at the budget versus actual reporting that would be really important to consider in that foundation to make sure that the right information comes out at the other end?
So that's, again, as you guys have already heard, there is this handshake that happens between how you design your foundation data model to reporting. And so you want to make sure you think comprehensively, not just in what we do today, right? Because the purpose of Workday is really to improve your reporting functionality. And so when you think about that, you want to think primarily how your organization needs to see those financial reports. Also, we want to think about the components, right? Some people look at their financials and it's fund based. Again, you have, different buckets of funds, or you may look at it at your ledger account or your GL account at this point. And so, or it could be departmental. So we want to think primarily about the way you look at those financial statements for the various requirements, as was mentioned, whether it's the regulatory, statutory, state, or just ad hoc and operational reporting needs, to be able to ensure that your foundation data model meets that. Because again, ultimately, if we don't have the data within Workday, you cannot report upon that. And so it's going to also be important when you're thinking about those design elements. Don't think about how you're reporting today. I need this because I report management reports this way and I report operational reports this way. Think about how we could possibly consolidate those to make it easier for your end users as well. And so if you have a report that, you look at the GL activity, but yet you want to see it by a particular organization. So you have a manager that maybe is a cost center manager, and they're saying, oh, I want to see the activity in my ledger accounts, but I only want to see it for my department. Well, we can consolidate that into a single report. And so now you don't have 2, 3 reports or 50 reports for your cost center managers, but you could leverage a single report to be able to give a departmental overview and then get down to the details for that particular report.
That's so important to think about the end in mind. And Dallas, I'd love to give your perspective because I know that in your previous deployment, you did rethink how you could do things and how things were structured. So what would be a couple of your lessons learned that you would offer to folks who may be beginning their finance journey or considering it, much like the things that Sarah and Terry have shared?
Yeah, that's a great, pardon me, that's a great question, Analea. I think we went through several iterations to try to maximize our configuration of Workday. And I think we tried some things up front and found out as we went forward that we could tweak that a little bit as for our own reporting purposes. um, what I would advise is to extend the net of um, individuals who are having an opportunity to kind of weigh in on that structure. So certainly we started with a kind of executive group that vetted or made kind of some suggestions here, and then we extended that to a management group. But we found that, really including those users who were most engaged and touching the system the most, and how they really were making transactions, making requests and requisitions, how they were processing requests that were coming into the queue, helped us to refine how we were structuring our data appropriately for the kind of reporting that we needed. So if there was, one thing that I could say, it would be to consider, and you may want to, limit, how much you brought in that net, but certainly you want to make sure that you have some representation from those individuals, whether it be finance and primarily finance, individuals in the college units who are actually purchasing or making these transactions, or even on the HR side. Be involved at the table to give some input and feedback. We found it to be very helpful. And the caveat I will add with that is we all are creatures of habit. We are comfortable in our comfort zones. And so what Workday helps us do, and I kind of alluded to this in my opening, is helps to get us out of our comfort zones. So you have to guard against that as you're extending your net. But nevertheless, I think it's very valuable to get that perspective.
Absolutely. So valuable to get the input on the user experience that they want, but also understand your vision and help marry those two. I know that in each area, hundreds of delivered reports are available for each even sub area. It's always so exciting to see all of the things that Workday has delivered. But Terry, I'd like to go to you and talk about when do you make that decision between when you can use a delivered report and when you need to create a custom report?
So you really want to think about, how you want to be able to, as Dallas spoke to earlier, analyze the financial health and the standing of your organization, right? And so, as you just mentioned, Workday delivers these reports out of the box, right? But each organization has a different way of which they want to see their data presented. And so you really have to start to think about what data points or data sets are important to you when you're looking at standard reports that are delivered. And if they don't meet that requirement, for instance, let's say Workday delivers a trial balance, right? But at the end of the day, you want to be able to see that trial balance maybe by a fund. Okay, so you want to see beginning, ending activity for funds. So you don't want to see it summarized by your GL account. Then you would need to create a custom report at that point. Or another instance of that would be, let's say, for instance, you see a standard report, but the standard report gets you about 50 to 60% of the way. Maybe there are other elements that a typical, standard report is presenting, but you say there's other information that you would like to see pulled into that. A good example of that might be expense reports, right? You go and look at an expense report, but the defined expense report's just high level. It doesn't give you down to the transactional detail. So you might want to see any work tags that were allotted to that, locations. You might want to see, in addition to that, maybe worker details, worker location, worker address, payments, types, things of this nature. It would just depend on how you're synthesizing that information. It also could be the frequency and how you run that. We might have to customize time periods, So again, thinking about all the various ways in which you want to be able to synthesize that data will dictate when you need a custom report. And any time that you have to make an edit to either a standard report or we're starting from ground bottom, that constitutes a custom report.
And to clarify, something that is a bit different in the Workday world is that even though something is a report, using my air quotes, that user experience to the user can often be like a new screen or a new view for them. And so that sometimes takes a little bit of getting used to, but it can also help them pull information together in a different way. So very, very helpful. Dallas touched a little bit on the modeling and planning aspect. And so I'd like to bring you in, David, to talk a little bit about adaptive planning. And if you could give us an overview of the possibilities with where the regular financials system may stop and where financial planning takes it from there and the possibilities that are available.
Yeah. So adaptive uses those advanced reports that Terry was talking about to pull in different data from HCM, from fins, from student, et cetera. If you can put it into an advanced report, you can bring it into adaptive. And it centralizes all of that, in one place in adaptive. You have your actuals there, and you can build out a variety of different types of models to, project into the future. Some of the benefits, it's basically real time. A lot of times the integrations run overnight, so you have all of that, basically close to live data available for the planning side of things. Um, you're not working on a static type version, which, can happen, pretty frequently with Excel. I think Dallas mentioned before, the key of the real-time data. So that's one of the main components of adaptive there. You also have the ability to create a lot of different types of scenarios. So if you're used to maybe an Excel type planning workbook where you have a gigantic workbook, you have one set of expectations in there, and if you want to change them, you're saving a new version out, renaming that, and so on and so forth. And it can be pretty cumbersome, lose track of different things. In adaptive, you can just create your own little personal scenarios or shareable scenarios off of your main budget. Things like that. And you're on mute right now.
Well, somebody had to do it. It might as well be me. Um, and I know that I will apologize to Terry because I skipped some of her amazing reporting things that we will come back to. So, how does adaptive support some of those frequent reporting issues that you may have?
Well, you can build a lot of different types of flexible reporting on top of the models that you're building in adaptive, which we'll look at later on. In this side in particular, there are quite a few different higher ed specific items. Top left example is talking about tracking income and expense over a grant's life. So you'd have your different grants that are sitting in Workday as your work tags, bring them over to adaptive as called dimensions. And then as you're planning all of your different models, eventually you're going to have that data stored by grant, which you can report on in the future. You can, toggle, different expectations up and down and see how that affects, reporting by grants, et cetera. There are also, quite a few other applications. We do have the, ability to forecast capital projects either a year or two, or you can create, versions 10, 20 years out if that's, what you need to do for your organization. From a higher ed perspective, usually your highest total cost is your faculty, your staff, et cetera. And Adaptive has a lot of great, both out of the box and editable functionality for that. So you can use position-based budgeting, which you'll use for a lot of different parts of the organization. You can also create different grouped type forecasting. So if you have different temp workers or other smaller positions you don't want to look at in a very granular way, you can forecast that in a more grouped manner. Next to that, with the what if scenarios. So I mentioned that earlier, but you have a lot of different ways to toggle between expectations and also to save out different sets of expectations together for future reference and to kind of share amongst the team. So you can whip something up on your end, and then you can get a meeting together, show everyone what you're looking at, what your expectations are. Then below here we have Empower Board of Trustees. So that's talking about allowing them to see real-time data, have their own access. This really is a wider trend, and when we're implementing things at AVAP and across the industry, when people are doing this correctly, you're building these different, platforms to allow people to dig in, to whatever data they need. So if you want to build a specific report or a dashboard, which we'll take a look at later, you can create that very specifically for different sets of users so that they're able to, get in there, see the data they need. They're not necessarily sending a huge amount of questions over your way when they can figure things out themselves. And that bottom right area there, the improved collaboration, that's you're getting your data, from your Workday Fins, HCM student, et cetera. So the data you're planning with is going to exactly match what's sitting in your main systems, and then you have different people who can come in there, edit data. People can see their edits, and you're all working in one place at the same time.
That's huge, that it's all connected. So we're not talking about integrations across all of these pieces. It's all within Workday, which is remarkable. I do want to let Terry show some of the reports in the regular financial side, and then I want to dig into some of those touch points between adaptive and financials. So Amy, if you could go back just a little bit so that we can pick up Terry's report information, that'd be great.
So here I just wanted to outline that, again, you guys will find that Workday offers so many different opportunities for you to do ad hoc reporting as you see fit. There are 8 standard report types that come out of the box for Workday, but when you think about the financial side of the house, there tends to be 3 common reports that we use, and you use either an advanced, a matrix, and a composite. And so we'll start with the advanced. The advanced is just like if you were using a database table, a SQL table of some sort, right? You're able to just get a flat data file. You can put an infinite amount of transactional data. You can chart with this particular report. You can reorder it in the UI for the end user's personal preference when they're looking at reports. This is the only report that also will allow you to be able to do web service enabled functionality. So this will also be the report type that will work with the tool called worksheets within Workday. And I'll have a slide in just a second for that. The next one is the matrix report. This one looks more like a pivot table. And so this is where you can summarize different objects. We call them work tags within Workday. And so let's say, for instance, you want to see, the total count of workers by department. Then you would use these summarizations to be able to show, the particular worker count by the different departments. And you could put it into chart form. You can do chart and table. You can also do what we call aggregations. So when you're looking for, calculations of some sort, max, min, average, sum, you can create your own personalized, summarized calculations of some sort. And then you have the champion, which is the composite report. This is the one that is typically used for financial statements. It is the blend between the detailed report, which is the advanced report, and the summarized report, which is the matrix. So a composite report will give you the opportunity to show the data in a summarized format, but then you're able to use what we call outlining, which is in essence the expand collapse functionality to be able to see the detail that you want to see for each transaction type. You can also employ what we call outline structures, which allow you to group work tags together for single prompts. So again, allowing you the functionality to use a single report for multiple use cases and different audiences. So next slide, please. And so what you're looking at here is just a typical example of a advanced report. As I mentioned to you guys, this is just a tabular output, so you can see all the details related to your journal line activity. This is completely modifiable. Again, up in the corner, those icons is where you're able to redo this view to your liking. You can also export this in the form of Excel or a PDF. Next slide, please. This report that you're looking at is what we would consider a matrix report. Again, remember, you're wanting to do some type of summarization of the data. So at this point, this is expenses by department. So you want to see each department's expenses as a whole instead of having to look at Department 101, Department 102, Department 103. You want to see administration, you want to see finance, you want to see maybe the Office of Admissions and their expenses. This is a great way to leverage getting that detailed in a summarized manner. Next slide for me. This one here is just a standard income statement, right? So, again, being able to see your income statement how you want is important. In most instances, individuals will use what we call a ledger account summary. Again, this will go back to your financial data model, ensuring that you group accounts together so that you can look at them in a summarized way. But then you can also get down to the level of maybe you want to see the individual ledger accounts that roll up to those particular groups. You also maybe want to see departments, locations. You might want to see funds if you're using some type of, grant or projects at this point. All those details could be used as an expansion to give you those details on the front of the report. But so the report won't be so overwhelming to the end user, as you can see right now, it's just a summarized format. So again, a great way for you to get the best of both worlds with summarization as well as details. Next slide, please. And so when we think about budget versus actuals, this is everybody's, fun reports, right? We want to be able to see how much money do we have to work with? How much money have we actually spent? This is important. Workday out of the box gives you several reports for you to start with, but in most instances you will find, as I mentioned, if you're wanting to see this by a actual department, you want to see this by a fund, there will be some customization that is needed. But these are the standard reports that we find most organizations, especially in higher ed, ask for. Next slide, please.
See.
And so these are just some additional tools for you to keep in mind, especially for financials when you're wanting to think about, in addition to your dashboards, presentation purposes. One of the big ones is Office Connect. A lot of accountants especially love Excel. It's a Microsoft add-in that you can use using the metadata from Workday. And then you can also use Discovery Boards, which is a drop and drag functionality to allow you to be able to perform ad hoc reporting and visualizations. And then you can use worksheets, which again would be used with the account type of advanced reports. Just showing you that there is a wide diversity of being able to achieve reporting needs for whatever type of reporting you need to perform. So thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Staying in that reporting vein, David, we want to go back to you and talk more about adaptive and how we can get into those deep analyses with the data. So I'll turn it back over to you for talking about that.
Yeah, so just a high level slide here talking about the flow of data. Again, it's those advanced reports that Terry was talking about. You're creating those in Workday, bringing data over to Adaptive to then plan with. You also have the Power of One functionality, where from Adaptive you can go back to Workday in certain instances. So you create your budget in Adaptive, you can publish that to Workday to then have it available for those budget versus actuals reports. In certain areas, you can also call it drill through from actuals data to pull up the different journal entries that relate to that actuals data. So you have that capability as well. But if you go to the next slide here, we can take a look at some of the details for the terminology. So Adaptive was originally an acquisition, and some of the terminology is still a bit different. It's merging more and more each release. But we'll be looking at a couple different reports or dashboards coming up. So some of the key items will be for the level, which is what a lot of Adaptive is based on. That's if you're thinking of your company, your cost center, maybe a concatenation of the two or something similar. The work tags when they're talking about grants and different items that you're building from your fins and HCM perspective, we bring that into Adaptive as dimensions. And then the only other thing I'll mention here is the plan name. So if you have a plan in Workday and Adaptive, that's going to be called the version. So some of the key items there that will eventually all be used in terms of determining what your reporting is going to be. This is an example of a dashboard. Specifically, it's called an active dashboard because you have different functionality on top of it. So in here, I have that highlight down there at that 2%. So if you are in some kind of managerial type role and you want to see if you're toggling off and on certain types of assumptions, how does that directly affect your outputs? You can create a dashboard like this where you have those drivers and assumptions there at the bottom left side of the sheet. And if you're changing different numbers there, like if you change that 2% and then save it, you're automatically going to see that tuition fees update based on that assumption. And you're also going to see that stacked column chart on the right-hand side update based on that assumption as well. So you can set up a pretty wide variety of these different types of setups here with different visuals, different numbers, different tables and charts. The beauty of this is that if you are sitting in one of these higher positions, you have a very nice kind of curated experience in terms of what you need to see. They're pretty user-friendly in terms of building themselves. And then you can also click through to a lot of these different items. So if you see that 16.5 million tuition and fees in total, if you were to click into that, you could see what actually is comprising that. So you can dig down into different cuts of data and see what you need. So you have the ability, to be self-sufficient, or if there's something that's, more time consuming, you can obviously, talk to whichever manager, analyst, et cetera, to get them to work on that. Yeah, next slide here. On that last one and this slide here, you'll see at the top, you have these different parameters here. So this gives you the ability to, have a lot more flexibility on your end and for the end users, other end users as well. So right now you're looking at the entire institution. You could switch the level to a given cost center. You can switch the time to different dates. You can add a bunch of other drop downs as well. This report here is just a classical variance analysis report where you just have your budget versus actuals with your different variances. You can spin up simple things like this in just a few minutes. So it's very user friendly from a reporting standpoint. And if you need something like very complex or specific, sometimes that can be done in Office Connect, as Terry mentioned, which is both fins and adaptive related.
Nice to have that connection. And I know hearing a few minutes is much different than what other people have experienced, sending it out, waiting for it to come back. So it's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. The last thing I wanted to just quickly touch on is you can create dashboards for the planner perspective as well. So if you have planners that are only occasionally coming to the system, they might not remember exactly how to use it. You might have difficulty getting people to learn the new system, et cetera. But here you can create a series of dashboards where you just have all the instructions directly there. So if you need people to be planning their travel, future travel for future years out, you can have them come into a sheet like this, keyed in at the bottom in those cells there. When they hit save, it's going to update that visual. You have instructions directly on the sheet telling them, what you need to add, what's a requirement, and so on and so forth. And just having it on the same screen really cuts down on questions coming from end users, and it also just makes that a better experience that they're going to like from the start. That is all I want to go through from my side here.
Okay, well, I want to bring in, thank you. And I think that it would be really exciting to put in numbers and see the pictures, because I'm a picture person, to see how it's impacting the graphs. I want to talk with you and Sarah a little bit about the touch points between Adaptive and Workday Financials. So Sarah, come back in and let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Analia. So it's a good point of clarity, and definitely something that new customers sort of struggle with, just kind of getting to where does one pick up, where does one stop, and the other one pick up. So from a just overall perspective, obviously all of the planning and this analysis and the very cool things that David was showing us as far as modifying those drivers and getting to different details is all happening kind of in Adaptive or Office Connect and all those places. But once we have that completed budget in place and we've got our full adopted approved budget, take that into Workday, right? And then Workday will really do a lot more of the budgetary control, as well as all of our budget to actuals analysis, and things can happen in Workday. But we do, want to keep Workday and Adaptive sort of in sync with one another with those information so that we can continue to run those dashboards and utilize Adaptive's very robust reporting capabilities to do some of that analysis as well. So that'll be a decision that each team gets to make and sort of decide how frequent that interaction is between the two systems, as well as where we want to direct users to. Oftentimes it's easier if we have a central place for like our very end users consumption of data to happen directly in Workday, because they're already in Workday to do the transactions. They're in Workday to do the analysis when things are failing budget check, if we were going to go to a control level. But maybe more people on the central level might want to see some of that data in adaptive and be able to utilize some of the tools and things happening on the adaptive side. So kind of thinking about that flow of information and the frequency of those back and forth, we have some control over that and be a decision factor to make sure that people can use the data and not get frustrated kind of coming in and out and where do I see what and what time and how do I know it's accurate and alleviating a lot of that stress for the end users.
Right. So I appreciate that that's the same mindset that Dallas talked to us about, how important it is to consider the user experience for those end users, the ones who are going to be in there all the time and where they're going to want to get those answers and how deep they're going to want to model. David, anything you would want to add on the touch points or considerations there?
I mean, just kind of going back to what Sarah said earlier, where you're designing fins in terms of what you want to be reporting on eventually. It's kind of the same way with adaptive. A lot of what adaptive's based on is those decisions made early on in fins. So if you need specific work tags or things to be, slicing and dicing the data by in fins, then we'll be able to ingest all those in adaptive and, create the same types of plans, budgets, reporting, etc.
There are so many possibilities. I'm not even a finance person, and it's just so exciting to see your excitement. We need people who are excited about the data and the money and the fiscal. Not that I don't appreciate it, but we appreciate your enthusiasm. And speaking of that, it has been a pleasure to chat with you all and hear your expertise and see how the depth of your experience. Dallas, I want to give you the opportunity to give the last thoughts as we've had these conversations and talked about things to keep in mind and lessons learned. What would be the one thing that you would ask the attendees to take from this if they're thinking about moving into use of Workday and financials and adaptive planning?
Thank you so much, Analia. There's so much to consider in terms of final takeaways. I talked about Workday being a transformative project implementation. If you're on campus and you're thinking or you're in the process of going through the implementation of Workday, you probably are undertaking one of the more important initiatives on your campus, and I would dare say in some time, in quite some years. The impact of the implementation of Workday is going to last long after we have left, and I've seen those impacts at 3 different places now. And if I could just say simply, if you're looking for a solution that extends your ability to do reporting and do deeper analysis and gain more insights, Workday enables you to do that. If you're looking for the ability to have greater controls around your systems, support your risk management and compliance efforts, and really just kind of tighten your operations, Workday is able to assist with this simply by implementing it with the role-based controls that come along with Workday, with the automating of tasks, the embedded policies that enable you to ensure that your key policies are followed. The dashboarding that we've talked about, the segregation of duties that come as a result of, again, the natural Workday flow. All of these things are a boon to a CFO or to an organization that's really looking to increase your operations, transform your operations. So it's a very important undertaking, and one that I've seen the fruition of the effort. So I would just again implore all of particularly the CFOs that I'm talking to, and the CIOs to understand the impact and the precipice of transformation that you sit on if you are to go forward with Workday.
Well, we've been through this transformation for a couple of years together, Dallas, at 2 different organizations. And if there's one thing that you would suggest folks keep in mind as they think about a partner to help them deploy Workday, such as AVAP, what would you share with the audience?
collaboration. Collaboration, pardon my call, collaboration, communication is key in this process. It's an extended process. It's going to be at least a year, probably more, if you're doing just the platform. If you're doing the platform and the student, you're probably looking at 2 to 3 years. So it's a long relationship that you're going to have, and it's going to require transparency and ubiquitous of exchange of information, financial information, and data, and communications around the coordination of the project. So you want somebody who understands and is invested in the why that for your campus, the why that you're proceeding with, and someone who really appreciates and has made the commitment to go along with you. And I'm just so happy to be on the second round with AVAP, and know that we can kind of go down this long road together.
And we are honored to be on this round, this transformation round with you again, Dallas. Thank you so much to our panelists. This has been a wonderful time together. If you have any questions that we have not answered, please feel free to send those our way, and we will share those with you. Thank you, Dallas. Thank you, Sarah, David, Terry, Cora, even though I know you didn't get to speak, you were there supporting us, and I appreciate you. Amy, I know you put a teaser in the chat, but please talk about our upcoming session and any other things that we have to share as we sign off.
Will do. And thank you to you, Analia, for facilitating. We always like to say you're our frustrated Oprah, or you do. You do a great job. But hot off the press, I'm excited to share that our next roundtable is going to be posted on LinkedIn next week. It's going to be on May 8th, 2 to 3 Eastern at Northern Kentucky with Northern Kentucky University. They're going to talk about why they chose to move forward with Workday, specifically to meet the unique needs of a regional public institution, and then why they chose to do it now. So it can be an exciting session. Keep an eye out for it. But you want to say thank you to everybody for attending today, and keep an eye out. We will be sending the recording to you, and hope you all have a great day. Thank you all. Take care.